Welcome to the PreSnap Podcast presented by LineStar. On today's show, the top 5 rookies to target for fantasy football in 2023, right after the NFL draft. Alongside Tyler Wiemann, I am Shannon Sommerville. Tyler, we had an exciting draft, a lot of nice prospects to look at, and now from a fantasy perspective, we can kind of analyze them as we head into the 2023 season. Also, best ball tournaments are already started on Underdog Fantasy, so something that can be very helpful. Even now, I know a lot of people are getting into it early this season.
Yeah, I mean, the contest just came out. There's a big one on DraftKings with $1 million up top, but then Underdog Fantasy, $15 million prize pool.
You got to be in it to win it. Yeah. And if you don't already have Underdog Fantasy, make sure you go get it and download it and use the promo code LineStar when you do, because you'll get up to $100 of your first deposit match. Links to that are below for that. Also, all of the analytics that you need to dominate in daily fantasy, plus our new Props AI tool, make sure to check it out at linestarapp.com. And if you're watching us on YouTube and you're enjoying our content, do us a huge favor, give us a like, subscribe to the channel, sign up for those notifications, and comment below. Let us know what you think about this year's draft and this upcoming season in NFL action. But let's just get right to it, Tyler. We had a very interesting draft, some head scratchers, some players that I, for one, am very excited to see. Hopefully they'll be on my fantasy team. So we're going to go through the top 5 who we think have the, I guess, best prognosis for performing for daily fantasy and fantasy football this season. So let's start things off with number 1, and that's Bijan Robinson, the running back from Texas who got drafted 8th overall by the Atlanta Falcons, and he's in a great spot. Atlanta basically doubled down on their running offense, and they were like, yep, we're going to make this guy the star of our offense. What do you think about his role in fantasy football this season?
I think it's an interesting spot because, one, Atlanta is absolutely saying we are just going to try and run the ball down their throats, down everybody's throats. They did it all last year, but they didn't have the talent they do now. And with that, their O-line is very good. Tyler Algier was extremely good in behind that offensive line. Now they're getting a guy that is even more capable, a little more dynamic. And I think this offense, the usage for running backs, will be able to carry 2 running backs.
Yeah, absolutely.
But Robinson is not going to get, 70% of the carries. He's probably going to be more of like a 60-40% time split. But like we said, they're going to be running the ball a ton, so I think the offense can support it.
Super well-rounded. He's big. He's got the size. People are comparing him kind of to Saquon Barkley even, so it's going to be interesting to see the impact he has. They didn't draft him in the first round to have him sit on the bench. He's going to be an impactful player, and especially when you look at a guy like Tyler Algier, who was drafted in the 5th round, and he had over 1,000 yards this season. I feel like Robinson can really rack up some numbers for fantasy owners.
Absolutely. And Algier played great last year, but he is not that athlete that Robinson is. So I would expect a lot for Robinson this year.
All right. Next up, let's go to another running back from Alabama this time, Jahmyr Gibbs. The Alabama running back was drafted in the 1st round by the Detroit Lions, 12th overall, which was met with a little bit of skepticism. Explosive runner, very elusive, and one scout compared him to a Tesla, says he just accelerates so well and just has soft hands underneath, so he's got that pass-catching ability as well. What do you like about this from a fantasy perspective?
Well, the Detroit Lions last year was another team that could carry 2 running backs. They had Swift and Williams. Williams led the league in touchdowns. Swift, we know, is a dynamic pass catcher as well as runner, and both those guys are gone.
They gone.
So now they have Montgomery and they have Gibbs. We know Gibbs will for sure at least have the Swift role, but I think his role is going to be a little bit bigger than that. I don't think you draft a guy 12th overall and only give him, a little more than the 3rd down role. And so I think Gibbs is in a good spot. Yeah. This offense is going to score points. That Detroit Lions defense is not that good, and they didn't get that much better in the offseason, so they're going to have to score, and they'll do it through Gibbs for sure.
Last season, Detroit was 11th in rushing yards, and that was Jamal Williams, who is now with the Saints, and then DeAndre Swift, who now they had traded to the Eagles after getting him getting Gibbs in the first round there. So Gibbs, I do believe, is in a pretty good spot there in Detroit. Decent offensive line to run behind as well.
Absolutely. It's a good offensive line. They do have David Montgomery there, which, he's definitely going to eat into that production. They gave him a big contract. So it'll be interesting to see how they use these two guys. It will be a little bit of a timeshare, but we've seen this offense can handle it.
All right, at number 3, we've got Jordan Addison, the wide receiver from USC, drafted by the Minnesota Vikings, 23rd overall. Now, 2022 Vikings were 6th in NFL in passing yards per game, 3rd in pass attempts for good reason because they got the best wide receiver in the NFL, Justin Jefferson. But now he's got a buddy on the other side, maybe to take the pressure away a little bit from him. But what do you think about Addison and his role for fantasy football this season?
I think Addison is a really interesting one. So they drafted him 23rd.
Yeah.
They took Justin Jefferson at 22. So they obviously believe in Addison here. And he's going to be taking that Thielen role. We saw Thielen just a couple of years ago be very productive in the role. Thielen's skill set may have declined a little bit. And Addison's stepping in. He is going to be the second wide receiver. And I like the spot. I mean, defenses are going to have to look at stopping Hawkinson, stopping Jefferson, and then Addison's going to be there. And we still don't really know what's going to happen at running back for Minnesota. So, we'll see there.
It definitely presents some opportunities, especially with, KJ Osborne stock down for him, but Adam Thielen now in Carolina takes that away as well. So, again, another guy, you take him so high in a draft, you're not going to sit on the bench in this one, and you're going to get him involved in the offense, especially Kevin O'Connell, who we saw last season when he took over the Minnesota Vikings, how pass-heavy they became.
Yeah, and I don't think they believe Osborne is the number 2. I don't think they think he's good enough. So it's Addison's role to take.
All right, one of the other big names of the NFL draft this season was quarterback from Florida, Anthony Richardson, who was drafted by the Indianapolis Colts in the first round, pick number 4 overall. Big size, 6'4", 230. He is known for his size, his speed, has drawn a lot of comparisons to maybe a hybrid combination of Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen because he has the speed, because he can scramble. What do you make of the impact he could have this season for fantasy football owners?
Andy has a huge arm.
Yeah.
So, one, he can, if they have a wide receiver, they can break the top off. He can absolutely get it to him. But, look, it's kind of interesting. We're not talking about any of the other quarterbacks taken, some taken ahead of him. And it's really just because of this rushing upside. We've seen year after year the running quarterbacks can jump in and have immediate effect on fantasy leagues from day one, and that's just not the same for more passing guys. So I think that combination of his big arm and his size and speed gives him a nice outlook. The Colts also have some good weapons, so I like his spot.
And the Colts have a new head coach in Shane Steichen, who comes over from the Philadelphia Eagles, where he transformed the Eagles' offense, specifically Jalen Hurts. And hopefully he'll implement some of those changes that he helped Jalen Hurts to become, MVP caliber.
Yes.
So in
Very
a good
glad
spot there as
up.
well. That's a nice point there as well. Good offensive line. The run game is solid there. So in a good spot there. I mean, of all the rookie quarterbacks, that's a great spot to be in. And all the scouts that I've seen are just so excited about Anthony Richardson and just the raw talent level skill set that he brings to the table.
Yeah, and I'm glad the Colts took him because he's really he's either going to be a top end QB or he's going to fade out of the league fairly quickly. But I think if you have one of those high picks, you might as well go for that upside.
Yeah.
So.
Only 14 games started in college, but he has impressed a ton of people, specifically, I guess, in Indianapolis. But hopefully he will help out some fantasy owners come this season. All right, lastly, we're going to Baltimore. Zay Flowers, the wide receiver from Boston College, was the 22nd overall pick. Baltimore took him. Now, he is an interesting one because he will have the opportunity. Of course, Baltimore just brought in Odell Beckham Jr., so This one is a little curious one for me. Like, I feel like it could go either way. The Baltimore
Yes.
Ravens just brought in a new offensive coordinator from the University of Georgia in Todd Monken, who will supposedly transform the offense a little bit. But nonetheless, you still have Lamar Jackson at quarterback, who isn't as pass happy as some of the other quarterbacks.
Yes.
And we've seen throughout fantasy football that the value for wide receivers for the Baltimore Ravens, not always there. What makes you think it's there for him with Flowers?
Well, one thing is this is the best supporting cast Lamar Jackson has ever had, probably. Behind Mark Andrews, there's OBJ, there's Bateman. Really, between Flowers, Bateman, and OBJ, any of them could be the WR1. We don't know who's going to step in. I know OBJ, the Ravens asked him what wide receiver he thinks they should go after, and he said Flowers. He absolutely believes in this kid. And from some clips, he looks really good. You know, shifty, fast, explosive, and I think there is a chance come halfway through the season that he is their guy.
Yeah, absolutely, especially on those home run balls. And you're dealing with guys that he'll be competing against for targets that have injury history. OBJ does.
Yes.
Bateman does.
Yeah,
Even Mark
exactly.
Andrews does, who, let's be honest, Mark Andrews is like the number one wide receiver for
He is for
Lamar
sure.
Jackson.
He is for sure their number one. But yeah, it's a good point. Both of those guys could be gone, and then it is the Flowers show. And, you know, we've seen Lamar have really good rapport with wide receivers before, and, you know, and a Marquise Brown. We could be seeing something similar there. I like Flowers' opportunity. It's just up to him to actually take it.
And I like the new offensive coordinator, not just because I am a Georgia Bulldog, so always rooting for the former
Of course,
Dogs.
she had to
Todd
throw
Monken.
that in there.
Yeah, he did a good job at Georgia at being able to
Yeah.
create a more balanced approach on offense, which I'm sure that's exactly what they're going to try to implement with Lamar Jackson and using his skill set to the best visibility, but also being able to hit some of those deep home run balls. And I think Zay Flowers could be the recipient of a lot of those home run balls.
Absolutely.
Mega points.
I mean, we've seen the last couple of years, OBJ is not who he used to be. You know, he's had a lot of injuries. I don't think he is a number one.
Yeah.
Bateman, again, he's showed some flashes, but then gets hurt.
Right.
You know, so there's a clear path for Flowers to be WR1 for a good offense.
So a lot of fun guys to keep an eye on for this upcoming season. If you are doing some best ball drafts, make sure if you haven't already to check out our LineStar channel. Will be coming out with a lot of content about not just best ball, but all sorts of stuff. So make sure you subscribe to the channel, that you comment below. Let us know what your thoughts are on this upcoming season. Keep up with our content. Like this video to help us out a little bit if you're enjoying our content. And also make sure to check out the LineStar app. It has all the tools you need to dominate in daily fantasy, placing those prop bets, whatever you need. Make sure to check it out. LineStarApp.com. All right, that's going to do it for us today on the PreSnap Podcast. Great to talk football.
Yeah, it
this
is.
early. It's never too early to talk
Almost
football.
back.
All right, we'll see you guys next time.
Have a good one, guys. Bye.